Probably a simple way to understand PawaPay or to think about us is we're one of the biggest payment companies on the continent. So we only focus on Africa. We think there's plenty of opportunity. There's plenty of complexity and enough to keep us busy and growing. And of course we can, Nigeria has its own infrastructure, which is banking focused, and we do get involved there. We do have a presence and we do that as well. And South Africa has cards, but when you look at sub-Saharan Africa, everything is about mobile money. It's not a substitute for cards or conventional banking, but it's a technology which completely leapfrogged these payment products by decades. There was M-PESA in Nairobi and in Kenya 10 years before there was Venmo or anything in the which is approaching the equivalent in the US. Yeah, we're nearly at 3 actually.
Woo! Come on, let's go. Hey Global Ghanaian citizens, Adrian here from the Sound of Accra Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be diving deep into the fascinating world of mobile money. We're featuring Aaron Markowitz-Scholman, who's the CFO over at PawaPay. PawaPay is a B2B mobile money aggregator and payment gateway that enables businesses to collect and disperse payments across 20 plus different African countries, all through one single API. In this episode, you're going to learn how mobile money became Africa's original stablecoin, how it's revolutionizing the way transactions are made across the continent, and its transformative impact on Africa's payment landscape. You want to stay tuned as we uncover the secrets behind PawaPay's success and a strategic focus on mobile money, keeping it ahead in Africa's digital payment race. Now, whether you're a fintech enthusiast, entrepreneur, or just curious about the payments of Africa, this episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. Let's go straight into our conversation with Aaron. All right, so I'd like to welcome Aaron, who's the CFO of PawaPay. Welcome to the Sound of Accra Podcast, Aaron. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. It's really nice to be on the Sound of Accra, and it's really nice to be having this conversation from Accra. So I got into Ghana yesterday, which is always one of my favorite places to visit.
Okay, so it's not your first time, so I'm glad you've been there multiple times.
Yeah, I think this is my 3rd or 4th trip over the last year or so. So it's an important market for us. As I said, Absolutely. It's a great place to come. So yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here.
Likewise, Aaron. It's a pleasure always for me to hear people are visiting my country. So I'm always excited. And the show is called The Sound of Accra, so it doesn't get more Accra than that, does it? So I think, Aaron, that's a good place to start. There's a number of things I want to touch upon in terms of including your role, PawaPay, where you sit in the market, the future. We've also got this 3i Africa Summit happening as well. But that's a good place to start in terms of, you mentioned Ghana's a strong market for you. Could you tell us about Ghana and I believe it's 19 other countries that PawaPay is in, or is it more?
Yeah, no. So PawaPay, we operate in 20 countries across Africa.
Okay. Yeah.
Probably a simple way to understand PawaPay or to think about us is we're one of the biggest payment companies on the continent. So we only focus on Africa. We think there's plenty of opportunity. There's plenty of complexity and enough to keep us busy and growing. Yeah. And at PawaPay, we focus really specifically on what we call local payment methods. So of course, across the continent and across sub-Saharan Africa, this means mobile money. Increasingly, other things like we look at crypto, we look at banking, and are starting to make some headway there. But we're really experts in mobile money. And effectively what we have is one API that merchants, whether local or international, can connect to. And through that, they get access to these 20 countries, including Ghana, where we're on the back directly integrated to around 50 different mobile networks and banking partners. So that means with PawaPay, you can get access to around 1 billion wallets, or 90% of the wallets across sub-Saharan Africa. And in addition to kind of giving people the ability to do collections and disbursements, we also offer full stack treasury. So you can collect money in Ghana, you can collect money for selling goods in Kampala, and then we'll be able to deliver those funds from the mobile money ecosystem, either for local settlement or internationally into whatever currency you want. So we basically help merchants do business in and across the continent.
Aaron, I think it's a fantastic product because when I've come across a lot of these fintech products that are designed for the continent, it could be like a remittance platform. I'm not going to mention any names, just to keep it heavily PowerPay focused. It's so easy for the product to get so diversified and so like, what's the word I'm looking for? So big. But what you guys have decided to do is to double down on mobile money and focus and go all in. Why is that? What's so special about mobile money? Why mobile money? Why not add other products? I know you added remittance capabilities to the platform
Yeah.
recently, but why go all in on mobile money?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really simple, actually. If you look at where the growth is, and if you look at how people across the continent make payments digitally, and of course we can, Nigeria has its own infrastructure, which is banking focused, and we do get involved there. We do have a presence, and we do that as well. And South Africa has cards, but when you look at sub-Saharan Africa, everything is about mobile money. It's not a substitute for cards or conventional banking, but it's a technology which completely leapfrogged these payment products by decades. There was M-PESA in Nairobi and in Kenya 10 years before there was Venmo or anything in the which is approaching the equivalent in the US. And so if you want to reach African customers at scale, you have to meet them where they are, and they're using mobile money. And it's highly secure. It's really fast. It's very, very reliable. And for us, that's the bet.
Perfect. I mean, I couldn't have broken down mobile money and explained why mobile money is so important the way you broke it down. It's so important, I think, to really focus on how important mobile money is. I think a lot of people overlook this because so many people are unbanked in the continent. And also, it's just something that is just so easy to use. Like I could be in the Ubers or in the Bolts. I'm not sure if Bolt's one of your customers. I don't know if they're one of your clients. I'm not sure if they are.
Yeah. We work with them in a number of ride-hailing customers across the continent, and that's a super interesting use case, right? Because you have, for many of our merchants, but you have an instance where payment reliability is so huge. Like you have to be able to execute that payment in an instant, and you have to get that money from where it needs to go, whether that's a rider who's paying for her ride or a driver who needs to collect their salary for the day's working. Like you really, really need to have the deliverability there. And for these kind of multinational groups that operate in many different countries, they need the peace of mind and they need the support, and they need the lack of hassle that comes from having just one supplier who's reliable.
No, it's a really needed product, honestly. I mean, I've seen similar players, on the continent, but I think one that just focuses purely on mobile money, I think is really needed because there's so many opportunities and use cases that product can actually be used for as well. Just moving on a bit from mobile money, could you just tell us a little bit about your role at PawaPay? I mean, you've broken it down nicely what PawaPay is for those that don't really understand, but could you tell us a bit about your role and what a typical day may look like for you, working at the company?
Yeah, I'm laughing because I'm still waiting to have a typical day, but
There's no typical day, basically.
yeah, I'm the CFO at Pawa Pay, and in that remit, I looked after, of course, the finance function, the tax function, the legal function, and also the treasury function. Well, I love it. I think one of the things I really appreciate is that, of course, the finance piece is crucial, but the opportunity to be CFO at this company also puts me right in the heart of the commercial and strategic discussions around the business as well, and in close contact with our clients. What do I mean by that? Treasury sits at the heart of what we do. So congratulations, you've collected $1 million worth of Zambian kwacha. But if you're a European business, you're not just calling HSBC and asking to do a trade. Like it's our obligation to help you get those funds settled either locally or internationally. And the other aspect of it that's really nice is that a lot of the time we're selling to sometimes my counterpart at another organization. And, I think no CFO wants to think about payments that much, right? It's a challenge you need to solve. But if you've got a company that's for the first time starting to do business on the continent, there's so many exciting things to think about. There's marketing, there's choosing your markets, there's assessing the opportunity, there's so much to think about in terms of planning and risk. Payments aren't an afterthought, but they just need to work. And that's where we step in and sort of being the partners to help them navigate that. And then in doing so, like helping them to think a little bit more about what their strategy for the continent might look like as well. So a typical day for me, we'll be all over the place. I mean, between the 20 countries and those various teams, we're picking up lots of different things. We spend a lot of time looking at treasury now, trying to make it more efficient, trying to integrate it more into the process, because we see that as being a huge friction, not just for us, but for other businesses who want to expand in the continent. We spend a lot of time, trying to support our teams in market, because across these 20 countries, we have a presence on the ground. We really pride ourselves on being an Africa focused, but also an African present business, and looking to kind of bolster the reputation of the brand, do outreach, engagement, and really trying to build our reputation and partnerships locally.
Perfect. And I think that's a good place to segue, because you mentioned locally, like being present on the continent locally, as well as serving the continent from outside Africa as well. You mentioned, of course, you're in Accra right now for the 3i Africa Summit, etc. And I know, people such as the CEO and the COO from PawaPay, they've been very active in getting involved in events such as the Africa Tech Summit and things like that. How important has it for PawaPay to be on the ground, as well as building from outside of the continent as well? As I'm aware, your team is, scattered across the globe.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say first of all, the majority of our team is based in Africa, and it's for us, it's essential. There's a statutory piece to that, where locally licensed, we're compliant. That engenders particular obligations to have dedicated staff on the ground, which of course we adhere to. But you really need to have an understanding of local markets. You need to have networks. You need to have relationships. I mean, everything I'm saying here applies to doing business everywhere. It's not unique, but it's still absolutely crucial. We have more than 200 mobile money wallets. We have more than 150 bank accounts. We're working with dozens and dozens and dozens of counterparties. And our job is to make all of that disappear when it comes to a company that wants to collect a payment or do a payout or transfer money from one country to another. And you can have all of the agreements in place, you can have all of the technology in place, but you still need to be present and have the relationships and the networks to make sure that can happen seamlessly. And not just to do it in terms of like the existing operations, but also to understand where the next opportunities are coming, how you can develop things further, how we can expand. So much of that comes from the brilliant teams that we have in the business operating across Africa.
No, I think you said it really well out there, Aaron. I think if you're not in the continent, if you're not in person having those crucial conversations, there's no way you're going to be able to move the needle forward. And I think such a continent as Africa, where negotiations really need to take place in person, the playbooks in the West doesn't really always work in Africa the same way. So you need to be on the ground making things happening. And I'm sure that's been the key for you and the team to expand into all these different markets across Africa, because I'm sure every different country in Africa is not the same in terms of the mobile money operators, in terms of the banks, the central banks, the regulators. There's a lot of moving parts, and doing this outside of the continent would not be possible. By the way, congratulations. I know you guys crossed over 2 billion transactions or something along the lines of that.
Yeah, we're nearly at 3 actually.
Woo! Come on, let's go.
we crossed 2 billion last October.
Yeah,
And I think it took just under a year to get from, or just over a year to I'll double check and let you know, but like it
yeah,
took a fraction of the time to go from 1 to 2, and it's going to take
yeah,
even less time to go from 2 to 3. And for us, that's really exciting. And tying that back to what you asked about mobile money,
yeah,
like for us, that's the, I don't want to say the proof, but that's what gives us like the really, really strong conviction, is that we see this channel continuing to grow.
yeah,
And of course, there's other things, as I said, that come up and that we're doing and that we're exploring, especially in regard to bank, especially in regards to digital assets. But we don't see
yeah.
mobile money being replaced. We still see it as the backbone of digital commerce, and yeah, hence the focus and the growth that not just we see, but we see kind of across the industry as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also clear that you have things like mobile penetration in terms of smartphones. You've got the internet improving. You have all these different areas in Africa improving, and I'm sure that's kind of contributing to your success, which is fantastic. Let me ask you this, Aaron. Mobile money, I believe, right now is running on Web 2, if I'm correct, but it looks like it's going to transition to Web 3 very shortly. How well positioned do you feel PawaPay is ready for that transition when it does take place?
Uh, right. Is this a hidden question about stablecoins, Adrian?
Yeah, well, I want to go to stablecoin and crypto when all of that comes into play. I mean, we're in a market where I think Africans are more savvy to crypto and using the blockchain. I mean, I've had a lot of guests on who build heavily on the blockchain. So when those changes happen, how do you feel PowerPay is going to transition over to that ecospace?
Yeah, it's something that we think about a lot, actually. Um, we see it really as an evolution, much less than a revolution. Um, I think if you think about it, mobile money is really Africa's original stablecoin. If you think about what M-PESA did back in 2007, I never stopped getting excited or like amazed when I think about this. But you had economies that were almost entirely cash based for the transfer of value. And you had a realization that as mobile penetration grew and people were handing over, shillings or kwacha or CDs to a company to buy airtime or to buy data, you had a digital
Yeah.
store of value. You had this brilliant idea to use the same infrastructure to store financial value and make it easily transferable. So what you have is you have a form of digital money that is held in custody with mobile network operators instead of banks. You have this form of transferability, which happens instantly across a ledger. Immediately whether a transaction is successful, it's more secure than banking. It's natively digital, and like, oh, holy cow! Like all of a sudden, what am I describing? Like, I'm describing to you the same thing that like people talk about the advantages of stablecoin. So I think like that's how we approach it, and we see that the continent was 20 years ahead in terms of building this infrastructure before we were talking about crypto and digital assets and stablecoin on conferences and on podcasts and kind of all of the rest of it.
Yeah.
So to kind of continue that thread is that mobile money digitized a lot of economic activity within countries. Aggregators and payment companies like PawaPay have come along to kind of connect that ecosystem to itself and to each other, to start opening up this network to local merchants, to Pan-African merchants, to international merchants. And then the next step that we see is the kind of continuance of this digitization with stablecoin, which makes the international or global movement of money kind of follow the same path. it's just giving us more speed. It's giving us more security. It's reducing costs and it's reducing friction. And therefore, we've had stablecoins as part of our settlement flow
Mm.
for 4 years since, since
Really?
before, yeah, since before they were cool.
Wow.
It's not
First
something that
first
like
mover's
we've ever
advantage.
felt the need to kind of like maybe we should have like market or we don't push it so hard. And of course, there's lots of discussion around compliance and making sure you do it in jurisdictions where it's acceptable and all of the rest of it. But
Yeah.
it's for us, it's just kind of an evolutionary piece that we've built into the digital payments infrastructure that we already operate, and it's all about just making it easier to do business across the continent.
Mm. No, I absolutely agree with you. I do believe that we need to get to a point where finance, something as simple as money, should be easy to move across the continent, but unfortunately it's not, because there's all these different regulations and governments and things that come into play. I want to talk about the FinTech Passport, right? So I know there's been a breakthrough in terms of, the Ghana and the FinTech Passport. I know this is really important for expanding into different markets. Um, how important is this for PawaPay in terms of diversifying and growing into different African markets? That FinTech Passport having, a lot of those moving parts kind of more simplified for you.
Yeah, so we're already in Ghana and we're already in Rwanda. So
Mm-hmm.
it's probably less of a um it's not something that I see changing for us like day to day how we operate. But what I do love about it, and like what I hope it's the start of a trend, is directionally what it means. It's a recognition
Yeah.
from two of the more thoughtful regulators on the continent that businesses operate globally, businesses operate on a pan-African basis, and that
Yeah.
there's need to work together to put in place regulation that makes sense and can enhance the ability for responsible businesses to grow and then to drive growth and like to boost economic activity. And it's definitely something that we want to see more of, because it's naive and silly to like think about Africa as one place. Of course, there's
Yeah.
54 countries, there's complexity, there's huge geographic spreads, there's huge cultural spreads, there's huge economic spreads. But in the same way that you've seen harmonization in Europe and harmonization across North America, you have these
Yeah.
economies which are trading with each other. You have businesses which are operating across the continent. And
Yeah.
the regulatory and legislative friction can be an absolute killer. It takes a really long time to set up businesses, become licensed in these countries. So things that make that easier absolutely
Yeah.
are the direction of travel.
Perfect. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that, Aaron. Now I know you and the team have been building PawaPay for quite some time now. Has there been any interesting insights that you've kind of seen like over the years? Has there been any really interesting use cases in terms of people using the PawaPay API, to kind of build, interesting platforms or, deliver value for their customers?
Yeah, I think for us, like, when you stand back and look at it, you can see this trend which starts like in the lower left and goes, upwards to the right. And when you kind of take away the lens of weeks and days and months and you look at it over years, it's really encouraging. But of course, it doesn't always feel that way in the moment, right? It's not just PowerPay, it's not just working in Africa, but anybody who's building or scaling a business or part of one, you see these setbacks and you see these hurdles. So what gives us a lot of confidence and makes us excited is that when we see the ability to grow with our partners, and changing your payment provider or entering a new market it's a really big deal. Like it doesn't sound like much, but it can cause disruption, challenges, and like lots of questions about it. Is it going to be better? Is this a good idea? All of that. So when we see companies that come with us for like one flow in one country, and then expand that to multiple flows, and then maybe expand it to multiple products, including bank payouts and mobile money collections, and then expand across markets. For us, that's like the biggest kind of recognition that we're doing something right. I can't say who, but I was speaking to a customer of ours earlier this year in West Africa, which operates a business that they need recurring payments for, like kind of a subscription type model. And they said that prior to using PawaPay, 40% of their monthly subscription was paid digitally. Once they migrated to us, within a year, it went to 70 to 75% paid digitally, and their renewal rate started to approach 90%. And like, look, this is like a little like kind of geeky case, I'm talking to you about the things that we're paying attention to, but it's a microcosm which for us says, we're a payments business. We make money every time payments go through our rails. So for us to grow, we have to get more customers, but more importantly, we need our customers to grow.
Absolutely.
And that's really fun to be part of.
It's a beautiful win-win scenario, isn't it, Aaron? The more they grow, the more you grow, and it just becomes this spiral effect. And then the more, they grow, the more they will tell others about, PawaPay, and then they come on board. It's a nice little, domino effect there, which I'm sure must give you a real buzz. What kind of things, I'm sure you've been in this space for quite some time, Aaron. What kind of things gives you a real buzz? Like, what you're really passionate the most about being in this space right now? I mean, you're going to be at the conference tomorrow. I mean, there's so much African fintech events happening on the continent. It just shows you where the financial ecosystem is at in Africa. What's really exciting you the most about this space?
Look, I think, for those of us that have the privilege of working in Africa, of being here in Ghana, and if you work in this space, whether it's fintech or anything else, but if you work on the continent, like if you're from Africa, if you're from wherever, like chances are you love it, right? Like every day is just like can be an adventure, but it's incredible. I think there's a sense there's challenges all over the place, right? Don't get me wrong. There's complexity all over the place. But, if you travel around and you do business kind of around the world, when you come to Africa, there's optimism and there's excitement and there's opportunity. And I find it infectious. This continent is going to be the biggest market of customers in terms of people by the end of the decade. There's 1 billion. We see more and more interest from global businesses who want to come and do business on the continent. Like, if you think about a company like Spotify, everybody in Europe who wants a Spotify account has a Spotify account, Maybe they'll like get me to upgrade and pay for my daughters when she goes to university, or I'll go to digital for an extra couple of bucks a month. But that place is saturated. If you're on the growth team there, like where are you going to be? Like you're going to be looking here, and this is where people are starting to want to be. And on the other hand, like you have so many African companies that are starting to blossom, that are starting to expand. The innovation that you have coming through in the fintech sector. Again, it started like with mobile money, but stepping back, where are stablecoins taking off? It's here because there's problems to solve, and there's the human capital and the human resource here for people who want to solve it. And yeah, this is what gives me a buzz. I think it gives everybody at PawaPay a buzz. This is like what gets us excited about what we're building.
I can feel it. I can feel it all the way from here, Aaron. Honestly, it is exciting time. Going into the 2030s as well. I think Africa having the youngest continent, in the world as well. I think it's going to be a very interesting time to see how everything unravels. And then on top of that, you've got AI and all of these different emerging technologies as well. I mean, things are only just getting started here. Okay, so I want to ask Aaron, regarding you and this company as well, where do you think you guys are going to go next from here? I mean, mobile money, amazing. You've nailed that down. You've added remittance to it. Where do you think PawaPay is going to go next? Or is there like a roadmap?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. We spend a lot of time thinking about it. One of the principles we always come back to is around, kind of owning your lane. I would say we take pride in doing as few things as possible exceptionally well. So our kind of informal slogan is like payments don't have to suck. And so if you start there, what does it take to make payments not suck, right? So you need to have a great technology product. You need to have great support. You need to have real-time reconciliation. You need to be able to offer global treasury. And then it's building out from there for precisely, what we think and what we see the customer demand is. So Adrian, you touched on one of those things, which is that last year we started making our first forays into the remittance market. There's a huge amount of volume that's coming in there. There is a huge amount of growth that's coming every year. And there's a huge amount of friction in that market as well, right? So that's one of the key areas that we're really focused on for 2026. And again, it's not just about the payout rails, but it's looking around the whole industry of where we can help shape it, help it evolve. And for us, the critical things there are really around FX and treasury, which I touched on earlier, but which is a huge, I think, barrier to growth and to business across the continent. The second piece we're working on is around banking integration, because we see increased demand for that, particularly on larger flows, whether that's remittance or certain B2B transactions.
Yeah.
And then the third piece is around digital assets. So I mentioned that we're using stablecoins as part of the global treasury process. But we know that there's also demand for a stablecoin wallet product across the continent as well. And that's one of the areas that we're looking at really closely. Again, I should say, always kind of in line with local regulation, something that we follow really, really closely. But, if I go back to that first principle of making sure payments don't suck and focusing on local payment methodologies, we really need to put our emphasis where we see those trends emerging.
I think you've really, said something important here, Aaron. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, by the way, because I mean, the biggest problem to solve on Africa really is, payments is one of the biggest problems to solve. And mobile money is one of the main solutions to that. So you're really just doubling down or tripling down on that. I think it's really important because there's so many unbanked people, as I said earlier on. But also, I think it's also important to have in the back of your mind where the industry could go in the future. So it's good that you've been working on the stablecoin wallet as well, which is really important. But it must be difficult, I mean, navigating the regulations and the compliance space, because it's not the same in all the countries. It must be really tough.
Yeah, it's not easy. Look, fortunately, we have a really strong regulatory and compliance team. We do have, as we talked about, that local presence. And we're at a size now, coming up to 3 billion transactions. We have to do things in the right way. We have to plan for the long term. Sometimes that can be challenging in markets where you see different people in different companies have sort of a different disposition or a different approach. But we want to be kind of at the forefront of what's possible and really a voice that's helping to shape the conversation around the direction that regulation and policy should take.
Awesome. I love that, Aaron. So I know you're doing around, I don't know, maybe it's just increased now, from this current date. I know you're doing around approximately, is it 10,000 transactions per second or per minute, roughly?
Oh no! Now you're going to make me do the math. So we do around we do around 5 million transactions a month.
Okay.
And we've seen our total volumes double for the last couple of years. But it means at any given time, PawaPay can be processing 2, 3, 4, 500 transactions every single second.
Yeah, that's a lot of transactions. And what do you feel will be the key drivers to, kind of pushing the boundaries and trying to kind of get to the levels of the Stripes of this world, doing around 150,000 transactions per minute? What do you think would be the key drivers? I mean, what do you think would need to happen for you to kind of get to that level? So I put you on the spot there. I am sorry.
No. It's a really interesting question. I think, technically we've had to build an infrastructure that can scale, right?
Mm.
So you have the stats, and if you ever want to go and see, how we perform, all of our uptime is public on the PawaPay website. We also have the uptime for all of the MNOs, so you can see whether it's a PSP issue or an MNO issue. But we managed to stay up. We went 2025 without having a single incident of downtime, right? So that
I was impressed when I saw that. Congratulations.
That kind of culture and that kind of resilience, tells us that we can solve for scale, and we can continue to grow. I think the key driver for that, really to get to those types of volumes, and it seems far away. It seems far away now, but it's going to continue to do the stuff that's going to make it easier for people to come and do business here, and for businesses to grow, right?
Yeah.
And we have a number of really exciting multinational groups on the books already. We have so many more that we're talking to. And we just have to keep our heads down and keep solving, keep improving, and, not just like trying to sell PawaPay, but making the case for, why we believe so passionately in the potential on the continent, and making it easy for these companies to come and do business here.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Aaron. I really appreciate, those points that you've shared as well. And I just want to say congratulations, to, all of the success you and the team have had at PawaPay. You're solving a really big problem on the continent. And also, from what I've seen from the product so far, customer onboarding and the customer onboarding side of the product has been really fantastic, and that's really enabled merchants to have a very good user experience with the product as well. Just to bring this to a close, I just want to ask you, I mean, we do have listeners, anywhere from fintech builders, fintech professionals, fintech entrepreneurs. We've got people who like to do a lot of remittance, to the continent. These are types of listeners that we also have on the Sound of Accra podcast. What would you want to share with those types of listeners in terms of what you would want them to know regarding PawaPay?
I mean, look, if payments touch your business and Africa is on your map, we should be talking. It's not just it's not just about whether or not you can be a customer of PawaPay. Of course, we'd be delighted to have that conversation, but our ability to do what we do is deeply reliant on having, as I said, dozens and dozens of partners who we can work with across all manner of things: banking, FX, merchants, of course. Like we'd love to get in touch, and even if there is not that business opportunity that's like immediately apparent on day one, I'm a big believer in serendipity. Perhaps perhaps it comes down the line, or perhaps we know people and we can help each other out. But it's one of the things that makes Africa is such a thrilling place to work, is because there's so much collaboration and there's so much enthusiasm, and we really love to be a part of that. So please, yeah, reach out. Like, you can find us on the website. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can tag Adrian. Yeah, we'd love to talk to you.
Thank you, Aaron. I really appreciate that. Great. So that's it. Any final thoughts, any announcements you'll leave your listeners, Aaron?
No, Adrian, it's really been a pleasure to have this chance to speak with you.
Likewise.
And yeah, looking forward to a really exciting week in Accra, and we'll certainly get in touch to share the feedback for how it's gone. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
No problem, Aaron. No problem at all. Thank you for coming on at such short notice. I really appreciate it. Great. So I'll let the listeners know where they can, learn more about PawaPay as well. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll catch you in the next one of the Sound of Accra podcast. Thank you for tuning in.